Well, today my first guest is author Mark Childress, and we're going to be talking to him about his latest novel, Georgia Bottoms, from Hatchett Book Group. Now, Mark is the author of 6 previous novels, including one that I'm sure you all know, Crazy in Alabama, which has been published in 15 countries with more than 1 million copies in print and was made into a wonderful feature film starring Melanie Griffith. Now, Mark was born in Alabama but currently lives in Key West, Florida. Well, Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jacqueline, it's great to be back.
Well, thank you so much. And this was such a fun book. So let's start off by your giving a brief overview of the story.
Well, it starts out, the book's called Georgia Bottoms. That's the character's name. Her grandmother changed the family name from Butts to Bottoms because she thought it sounded more genteel.
Sure does.
So it's at the beginning of the story. She's sitting in church in her little town of 6 Points, where she's a pillar of the First Baptist Church and an upright socialite known for her very fancy parties. And gradually you realize that she's listening to the preacher and thinking about the affair that she's having with him while his wife's sitting in the second row.
And that's a great beginning. It really is. And it just goes on from there. I just adored her, and the story was just fun. And that leads me to my next question, Mark. It appears that the South has many unique individuals that inspire writers like yourself, Capote, Fannie Flagg, and others. Now, are your characters inspired by people that you might have known?
Oh, absolutely. I was raised up by Southern women. I think most Southerners were. The men were always off either drinking or working or doing something else, And so I think, in a way, Georgia is a blend of every one of my aunts and probably a little bit of my grandmother. If you took away a lot of their inhibitions, they'd have been something like Georgia, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm also inspired by those writers you mentioned. I love Capote. I love Flannery O'Connor and Harper Lee. I was born in the same town that Harper Lee comes from, so there's something in the water down there.
Oh, there must be. And Fannie Flagg, I know, had good things to say about your book. So,
She's a wonderful writer. I think she's one of our really great writers writing now.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me that if you live in the South, you've got to write about people who are there and that are there and that you know. And what is it about Southern women characters that in so many writings they're strong but a little challenged, and yet they're so loved?
Well, I think maybe we have to go back to the mama of all characters, which was Scarlett O'Hara.
Oh, well, yeah.
She went as far as you can go in the direction of being a bad girl, but still she's got to be the most beloved character in fiction.
Absolutely.
And I think that, in a way, the South is the only part of the country that ever lost a war. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And therefore, there's a consciousness that still persists there that we're different than other parts of the country. I tell them down there, they don't have conferences in Wisconsin dedicated to Wisconsin writing and whether or not it will survive,
Well,
but down in the South, there's one every week.
Talk about that a little bit. Elaborate on that. That's really interesting, and I think that is such a great explanation for why. So, talk about some of the conferences that are there and the kind of people that come.
Yeah, there's practically a whole industry now based on Southern fiction. In addition to the people who are working seriously, there's, the sweet potato queens, and there's all these various types of queens and book clubs and things. But I don't know, Southerners really treasure their culture, and they treasure being different than the rest of the country, Back in the 60s when I was growing up, it was all, Beverly Hillbillies and hee-haw, and basically the whole country made fun of us. And, in some cases, we really deserved the ridicule we were getting. But I think that put a little bit of a chip on our shoulder regionally, and therefore people who paint a sympathetic version of the South are pretty welcome in the South. You know what I mean?
Well, yes, and I'll tell you, I've got a Civil War book that I worked on for about 10 years, and in it are a collection of letters, and I was, to me, the letters from the Southern women at home during the war were amazing. And so I'm sure that is all part of your heritage. It
I
shows,
think it is.
yes,
It's just passed down, and
absolutely.
also, when we tell something in the South, we tell it as a narrative. It's like you don't say, "Hey, I had a flat tire on the way home from work." You say, "Let me tell you what happened to me. First, I was late leaving work." Right, and the next thing you know, you've told a whole story.
Well, yeah, I like that. That's true. The stories of cultures, the Irish are like that too. They do the
Yeah,
same thing.
and exactly, and we're all Scotch and Irish descendants down there.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's
I
part
had
of it.
Dennis Lehane on my show, and he was talking about that too, the storytelling that goes on. It isn't just a straight yes or no. So maybe it goes back even further than in your culture there. Now, you did talk a little bit about Georgia Bottoms, and in the story, she's preparing a meal for her yearly party. Why did she feel the need? Because she does this every year, but why did she feel the need to prepare such an elaborate meal that would be remembered and talked about until the next year?
Well, as you know, and the readers who haven't read it yet don't know, Georgia has a lot of secret lives going on at one time.
And we don't
And
want to. We don't want to give that part away.
No, but she lives in a little town where everybody talks, and so one of her defensive maneuvers to keep herself from being talked about is to have this big social soiree every year that sort of, put the ladies on notice that she's part of the society and she's living by all their rules, and she can, make a congealed salad better than any of them.
Right.
And so it's very important to her to keep that image of her upright, correct, moral posture.
And very smart, too, to stay on the good side of the ladies. Now, something happens. Her party was ruined by a tragedy that affected us all at the time it happened. What was it you were saying about her specifically at that point when her party was ruined and what she did about it?
Well, I try to make Georgia a sympathetic character, but at the same time, she's really, really selfish in the beginning of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And her reaction to this national tragedy is so self-centered, and so it's all about her that in some way it shakes her a little bit off her foundation to realize that she's just that shallow. And so in some ways she's not that shallow. She's coming to a realization,
Mm-hmm.
But I think it helps the character grow a little bit. And by the end, she's not so callous about other people as she is at the beginning.
Well, that's true. And we find out later in the book, as you touched upon earlier, that she does carry a secret, and it is revealed further into the book. Now, how has the fact that she's carried this secret affected her life up until the point that it does come out and people start learning about it?
Well, she thinks of herself as truly this image that she projects to the town as a very upright, moral citizen fitting in with all of the values of the little town around her. But in truth, she's a rebel. I mean, she's rebelling against every one of the norms of that society. And when the secrets begin to unravel, she's forced to accept that, maybe a secret life has not been the most honest way to live.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope she's growing, I mean, she starts out, like I say, very self-centered character, but I hope that by the end she's learned something about, the fact that she's not the only person moving through the world.
Yeah, and her mother was a little off as well, and her brother. Okay, I'm trying to be kind about it, but and her brother. Well, her brother was really something. Why don't you talk a little bit about her mother and her brother and how Georgia handles all of that?
Well, bless Georgia's heart. The family fortune is gone, but she still has the big crumbling house to take care of, and her mother has Alzheimer's disease and is a virulent racist when she can remember to be.
Right.
I mean, that's the problem is it comes and goes in the most unexpected moments. And anyone who's dealt with someone with dementia knows that they're liable to blurt out things at any moment. And then her brother, he's always one step away from the law. He uses the AA as an excuse to, get ready to go party. So I guess I did kind of stack the dice against Georgia a little bit, but she's pretty strong. She can take care of herself.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of really funny things that happen in it, and her brother might have been a ne'er-do-well, but he was pretty likable.
I think so too. Yeah. I'm glad you liked him.
Yeah. Even Mama had her moments when she was okay, and I think we all know, as you say, we all know people like that are a little crabby and a little feisty, and then they kind of go off the wall somewhere. But Georgia was taking care of her, so that's really the case. Talk a little bit about, now I know I ask authors this, and it's already always very difficult, and I'm sure that right now, certainly George is your favorite character, and this is your favorite book, but you had a lot of success, of course, with the movie version of one of your novels, that's Crazy in Alabama. What did you think about the movie version of your book?
I was so lucky because Antonio Banderas directed it, and he directed his wife, Melanie Griffith, and he's European. And in the film world in Europe, the writer is very much welcome on the set. Mm-hmm. So he let me be involved in every step of it. I was there for the casting and the scouting and the entire shoot, and even the post-production. I got to sit in the editing room with him. So we just felt like Columbia Pictures gave us $20 million and let us make our little art movie. And we were just so pleased they let us do it that to this day, we just, we toast it and say how lucky we were.
Well, that's true. That's kind of like a stage writer. The writer of a play is more welcome into the circle than most films. I think it's kind of amusing in a way that a Spanish man was the director of a story about Southerners and yet carried it off so well. But as you say, you had a close collaboration with him, so I'm sure you were able to add a few things to it, were you not?
Well, I helped, and also, he grew up under Franco, under a very repressive regime, so
right.
He had real identification with the issues that the South went through in the 60s.
Mm-hmm. I bet.
And it was interesting. He saw a lot of parallels, and I think he put that feeling into the movie.
Yes, I'm sure you're right. Now, you're on this huge book tour. We're talking to you now from, was it North Carolina? Is that where you are?
Yeah, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte, North Carolina. Here. I love that. I love that town. But you're going to be on tour for quite a while, and then you're going to end up in Los Angeles, are you not, near the end of the month?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to be at the LA Times Book Festival. I'm excited about coming.
Well, that's a biggie. And what is the date of that? We want to mention that because we certainly have a lot of listeners. Oh, my goodness.
Now I'm groping for my schedule here.
Well, I don't have it in front of me either. I think it is the end of the month, and people can find that by going online to the LA Book Fair. If they go to my website too, markchildress.com, I've got the date up on there. That's right. Well, mention it again, your website. We want people to go to that too.
It's my name, markchildress.com. That's MarkChildress.
And it's right there. But that's amazing. Will this be the first time you'll be at the LA Book Fair?
It is. I'm really excited. It's supposed to be really huge and exciting.
Oh, I can remember when it was a lot smaller, and now it's just it's really grown and grown and grown, as they say, like Topsy. Are you going to be talking at it, or how is that going to work for you there? What are you going to do?
Yeah, I'm on a panel with three other Southern writers, and
neat.
And so it's called Stories from the South. I think each of us is going to read a little bit, and then we'll probably talk about, Southern stuff.
Oh, well, that's great. And on that note, I have to say goodbye to you, Mark, and really it's been a lot of fun. I hope it has been for you, too, and come back with your next book.
Thanks a lot, Jacqueline. Thanks for having me.